The 2018 short answer paper, section B. It's the feedback on the January 2020 mock, except for the very last question. Yeah, so after, it's all the same as the 2020 paper until question 25. 25 is the last one that's on that paper. 26 and 27 are replaced with a different question, which you'll see in a minute, which comes from a Welsh board side paper, but you'll see in a minute. Anyway, okay, fine. So question 21 should have been quite straightforward. It simply says, one of the ways in which a firm aims to increase its revenue is by increasing its price. Using economic theory, consider whether an increase in price will always lead to an increase in revenue. And really, if you'd revised your year 12 stuff, you'd be straight in there. It's just price elasticity demand. It's dead simple. All we're saying is suppose that the firm increases price by 10%, and suppose that demand is price inelastic. Then what we know is that therefore demand falls. So demand it's negative, so demand falls by less than 10%. Demand falls by say 5% or 4% or 3% or 2% or something. If you increase price by 10% and demand falls by 5%, then because total revenue is price times quantity, that's gone up by 10%, that's gone down by 5%. Overall, that's going to go up. Suppose, on the other hand, that demand is price elastic. Let's take the same situation. We increase price by 10%. What we now know is that demand falls more than proportionally. Demand is going to fall by, say, 20% or 30% or 15%. It doesn't really matter. It falls by more than 10%. So now, total revenue is price times quantity. But in this case, what's going to happen is that, sure, price goes up by 10%, hooray, but demand falls by 20%. So demand has fallen by more than price has gone up, therefore total revenue falls. The interesting thing about that is it asks you to consider, it's only a 4-mark question, but it asks you to consider whether it will always, these are all evaluative words, and I think the key lesson from this is that 4-mark questions can, under certain circumstances, be evaluative. Okay, so the next one's about government failure. So it's all about these EpiPens, and you can see that the price has gone up over 8 years, massively, far more than the consumer price index. That's what the graph shows you. That's a double axis graph. And then why has it? A US pharmaceuticals company, Mylan, acquired the sole right to acquire them. Laws could be passed. Although some have placed the blame for price increase on government regulations surrounding the development of new drugs. It takes 12 years and billions of dollars to bring a new drug to the market, restricting new entrants, and leaving EpiPen as the only product of its type. Okay, so is it government failure? You would be with all questions involving a key economic concept. It's usually a very good idea to have a definition to relate back to. There's no marks necessarily for the definition, but it anchors your answer. So all we say is that government failure is a situation where you have government intervention into a market that leads to a misallocation of resources. Often, the government was trying to correct market failure, and you'd then say that complete government failure is where there's a worse misallocation of resources, but it doesn't have to be. Government failure might be simply to do with some other form of intervention, which misallocates resources. Market failure is where the free market misallocates resources and leads to a welfare loss. Government failure is where government intervention, leads to a misallocation of resources and also leads to, a welfare loss. This is question 22, if anybody's cherry picking. So, is it government failure? So we start off by saying, well, look, here we have a situation where the government's intervened, and has it resulted in misallocation of resources and welfare loss? Well, if we believe that the increase in price is due to government regulations, let's suppose that we believe that that's true, then effectively we've got a monopoly. And if we've got a monopoly, then we also know that compared with if that was the free market perfect competition situation, suppliers marginal cost in perfect competition, and that's where supply equals demand, and that's price P1, and that's output Q1, and then we give the sole rights to this, or we restrict entrance into the market, so we've got monopoly. The monopolist will then kind of go, right, well, I want to produce where MC equals MR. I'm going to restrict output to Q2. I'm going to drive up price to P2. And therefore, there is a welfare loss. Because if we say that demand is marginal benefit, that's the marginal cost curve, the socially optimum level would be there, producing all the units where marginal benefit is more than marginal cost. But by giving monopoly power, but through these tough regulations, we've restricted output below that level. Therefore, there's welfare loss. Therefore, it's government failure. You didn't ask for a diagram, but what you're trying to show is that there is some. When we're talking about government failure, market failure, we need to be looking at under or over allocation of resources. So in this case, what we're saying that by imposing stringent regulations, we've got under allocation. There's not enough EpiPens made and sold. Therefore, people die. From wasp stings and nuts and stuff like that. And using the context is very important. Within that, it's probably a very good idea to link this price increase to what's happened in the chart. So we can see the price of EpiPen has risen from just over $50 to about $350, a 7-fold increase, whereas the consumer price index basically flatlined. So again, it's bringing that context in. That's your AO2 marks. On the other hand, is it really government failure to say that we have regulations surrounding the development of new drugs? Presumably we'd quite like them to be checked out before they kind of give them to you and kind of go, good luck. So obviously we want to ensure that we have safe drugs that are brought to the market and so on. You might want to start to say, well, are those regulations excessive? Is 12 years too long? Is it necessary that billions of dollars are spent? Are those regulations excessive? But obviously you'd still want some regulations. So that'd be one way of evaluating it. And the other way is simply to say, well, actually, Mylan engaged in a takeover. They bought those rights. That's arguably a market failure. The monopoly power has come about as a result of some sort of takeover or something along those lines. And so therefore you could argue that's not really government failure. The same diagram could be used to show market failure in the same way. So, but the point is, it's not a chit-chat about EpiPens. When you've got government and market failure, it's very, very important that you bring economic theory into play. Okay, so, it's a daughter. There we go. Hello, Verity. So, question 23. Question 23 is about price discrimination. So A is outline why this is an example of a price discrimination. And those of you who know me quite well, will have heard me talk about whether my chair is a dog. There's a chair. Is it a dog? What you do is you say, well, what characteristics mark out a dog? So it's got a back. Yes, it's a dog. It's got legs. Yes, it's a dog. It's got a bottom. Yes, it's a dog. But there are obviously major ways in which it's not a dog. But in this case, it's just asking you, why is the chair a dog? And you kind of go, well, okay, it's got a back, it's got legs, and it's got a bottom. We do the same with price discrimination. But in order to do that, we have to say, well, what is price discrimination? So price discrimination is a situation where a firm sells the same product, and that's the key. You've got to get that idea of the same product in, to different groups of consumers for different prices. And we say, in this case, first-class seats are the same at weekends and on weekdays, but they sell at different prices. During the working week, it is very expensive. At the weekend, it costs you 15 quid, or 15 quid extra. Therefore, the same seats are sold to different groups at different prices, and therefore it's price discrimination. Then, is it only the case that producers, with reference to the case, is it only the case that producers benefit? Well, no, of course it isn't. It's just like, But what you've got to do is you've got to show, if we take producers, they benefit in two main ways. Firstly, they benefit from selling first class, for some vast amount of money during the week. So we sell it to commuters. We sell it to people who've got to go into London and have no choice. We sell first class to commuters. For many pounds. During the week. So that's a benefit. But secondly, the producers benefit by selling the same seats. We sell first class, to kind of tourists or other weekend users for £15. Why is the producer benefiting? You've got to be really clear on why the producer benefits from that. And the point is that if they don't do that, that first-class train carriage, it's still being dragged all the way to Wales or whatever, but there's nobody in it. By doing this, we make better use of a resource. So you could argue. Some people argue that that price discrimination in this way can be argued to be economically efficient. It's improving allocative efficiency, but that's not what the question is about. What we're saying is by doing this, for zero cost. Well, I think they provide you with free crisps or something, but for basically zero cost, you're getting, the firm is getting an extra £15 a shot. Therefore, the firm is benefiting. Is it only producers that benefit? Well, no, of course not. The consumer benefits as well. Why am I going to pay £15 to travel first class? Because I think it's worth £15. If the price is £15, only those people for whom marginal utility is greater than £15 is going to do it. No one's forcing you. You don't have to go in there. I've done it myself. It's quite nice. I travel less, not as far, and it's a tenner. It's just like, you got a bit of space, put your laptop on. They provide you a free cup of tea. It's not worth £10. In terms of the tea that you drink, but it's a pleasant experience. So therefore, consumers are benefiting because if I'm willing to pay, let's suppose I'm willing to pay £20, and I do pay £15. Well, that's an increase in my consumer surplus. So therefore consumers are benefiting as well. Okay, 24. 24, there have been quite a few of these sorts of questions down the years. And what they're asking you to do is basically to draw a theory of the firm diagram. In this case, they give you the outline already. So you've got DAR, you've got MR. You're in a situation where the firm is making supernormal, abnormal profits. There's marginal cost going through the minimum point of the average cost curve. So what you've got to do is kind of say, well, okay, let's mark in the original profitability situation. There's P1, there's C1, and what we can see, is that the firm has abnormal profits of that level. But what then happens, according to the data, is that various things happen to Volvo. Firstly, unfortunately, there's a decline in demand in the North American market. And as a result of that, what we discover, what's yellow? Can we see yellow? Not really. If we then brown, nice. Let's suppose that we shift demand in to D2 and we shift MR in, to MR2. So the new profit maximising output is here at Q2. And the new price, because demand has fallen, price is only P2. But what we do know is that at the same time, Volvo significantly cut their fixed costs. So therefore so fixed costs, they're not variable, so it doesn't affect marginal cost. But what it does do is it reduces average cost. So what we'll do is we'll try our yellow pen. So there's average cost, falls to average cost 2. Ooh, that's very yellow. So therefore, we now know that our unit costs are here. And with a bit of luck, that's not too bad. So my profits are now this yellow area there, instead of the slightly smaller, kind of greeny purple area. So the key is that, even if you don't make your profit area look bigger, what I would do in an exam is I would just write bigger. All the marks really are for showing that you can shift D and AR, MR, average cost, and show how the new diagram works. So it's a bit of a bastard question. And then the other couple of marks are just for kind of saying why this happens in the context. 25 really is, do I know whether debt is a bad thing or not? If I do, then I get lots of marks, and if I don't, then I don't. So you got this. So we got this data on Japan. Japan's fiscal situation deteriorates rapidly, but so does everybody else's. Yeah, but Japan's deteriorates faster than everybody else. So what we got to, so in terms of using the data, we've got to kind of go, well, 240% of GDP is no fun at all. Other things being equal, and it's risen, from 1990, it's risen from 50% of GDP to 240% of GDP. That's a major increase. If you were to compare that with the OECD average, and that's rich countries, then they've risen from about 50. So OECD has risen from about 50% to, on average, just a bit over 100%. So they've been increasing as well, and that's your data. So it's increased, but everybody's been increasing, but it's increased by more than everybody else's. So is that a big problem? Well, the answer is it could be. So what's wrong with that? And the answer is, one, there is an opportunity cost. We could have spent the money on something else. So the government's repaying debt or paying debt interest. It can't spend it on health and education and other things that are good for growth and development. Secondly, we know that there is a risk that your credit rating is going to be damaged. That's what happened to Greece. Which is when people, when their debt reached a certain level, people felt that there was a danger that Greece was going to default. At that point, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. From a point at which Greece could borrow at about 3% interest very rapidly, it reached a point where it was 16, 20, 25% interest. It was what they had to pay on new bonds. Nobody can afford that, and therefore, that was a big problem. Linked to that, therefore, there is a confidence issue. What people are going to be worried about is that you're going to increase tax. That debt is so high, that what you're going to do is you're going to increase corporation tax, VAT, whatever, and it's going to be damaging to the economy. And therefore, what that can do is it can particularly decrease investment. And finally, there's what's called crowding out. Crowding out, you can explain in lots of different ways. But it's that idea that if the government is borrowing lots and lots of money, and using that to employ people and use resources, there's less money and resources available for private sector firms. So again, investment would be likely to be reduced. A simple way of explaining that is, say, suppose the government borrows more money. That's an increase in demand for what's sometimes called loanable funds. There's an increase in demand for fundamentally money from the financial system. If there's more demand for money from the financial system, its prices are going to go up. The price of money is interest rates. So if you're a business, that's going to make it more expensive to borrow, and it damages investment. Okay, that's the end of the 2018 main paper. So if you're looking for the 2018, if you've got the 2018 paper in front of you, that's the only questions that are on this video. If you've got the mock from 2020, then there is question 26, which was taken off a different paper. So this one is the one about, this one is about the Chinese money supply and inflation. And what you've got is you've got money supply growth, you've got inflation, P dot, or inflation, we'll put that instead. And what we can see is that on average over this period, the money supply is growing by about 12%, and inflation is about 2%. And the question is, to what extent does this data provide evidence to support the quantity theory of money? So if you don't know what the quantity theory of money is, you've got a bit of a problem. So the quantity theory of money says that M times V equals P times something, T, Q, Y, something along those lines. So M is your money stock. V is how fast or how many times that money how many times that money stock is spent in a year. If you take the amount of money times the number of times it's spent, then that's going to give you spending. On this side, you've got the price level times output, in some sense, that's the number of transactions, that's real output. You multiply price times quantity, you've also got spending. So quantity theory of money, therefore simply says spending equals spending. And the question is, well, suppose there is an increase in the money supply, what's going to happen next? And what you all did, well, anybody who knew anything about the quantity theory of money anyways, did is get, and therefore inflation goes up. It's like, well, does it? Why? So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be saying, well, what's the mechanism? So what we know is that Can I do it here? Yeah. All we know is that an increase in the money supply, one way or another, you would expect to lead to an increase in aggregate demand, other things being equal. It could be Zimbabwe, so it could be helicopter money, or it could be we're increasing the money supply via QE. Either way, we would expect aggregate demand to rise. So does an increase in aggregate demand lead to an increase in inflation? Well, of course, if the economy is at full employment, if you're a neoclassical economist, the answer is, well, of course it does. If you're a neoclassical economist, you say, well, there's a long-run aggregate supply. AD rises, Bob's your uncle, real GDP can't increase, therefore you've got inflation. Job done. If you're more inclined to say that the economy isn't necessarily at capacity, either because it hasn't yet recovered or because you're Keynesian, then you're going to tell a very different story. And what you're going to say then is, well, hang on, suppose we're here and aggregate demand rises. Well, all that does is it leads to an increase in output. From Y1 to Y2, AD rises from AD1 to AD2, and we simply get an increase in output. In other words, if we then put it back into quantity theory terms, what we're saying is that M times V equals P times Q. Increase in M leads to an increase in aggregate demand. Well, that might lead to an increase in inflation if the economy is close to full employment, or it might lead to an increase in output if it isn't. And at the same time, we've also assumed that V is constant, which it might not be. So V represents kind of effectively the efficiency of the banking system and so on. And we know that during the financial crisis, money was pumped into the financial system, but basically didn't go anywhere. It just sat in the banking system. So arguably, you could say what happened there is that there was an increase in M, but V fell, and therefore we didn't get an increase in aggregate demand. So then all you've got to do is to say, well, what's going on in this case? And the answer is, well, we've clearly got a lot more inflation. Sorry, we've clearly got money supplies going up at whatever we said a minute ago, sort of 12%. Inflation's about 2%. So, it's not that the quantity theory of money is wrong. It's that either, presumably, we know damn well that China's had a hell of a lot of growth, and it may be at the same time, that V is falling. I don't know why that would be necessarily, but it's clear that there's more going on than simply an increase in the money supply leads to an increase in inflation, and that's that.